Okay, so for this last little bit, what I want to do is, because there's nothing new about this work, absolutely at all. It's new to us, and that's because we, as a species, are a garden. We behave just like a garden, and we too move along the pathway of awareness. And evolution is different from revolution, right? Revolution is the victim and victor reaction to what's happening. Revolution attacks the mirror, right? So what revolution does is when I use the same means to liberate myself as I perceive being used to suppress me. In other words, if I feel I'm suppressed through violence, I use violence to liberate myself. That's what revolution is. And revolution says revolve. Revolution. In fact, all revolutionaries go back to the same point. A revolutionary becomes a dictator and creates revolutionaries who become dictators, who create revolutionaries. It just goes on and on, right? There's no end to it. It just goes on and on. Revolutionary behavior is the behavior of the ghost, right? It's the ghost behavior. So evolutionary behavior is a very different, an evolutionary uses a different means to liberate than is being perceived as what is being used to suppress. So an evolutionary, although they perceive themselves as being suppressed by this anger, by this dictator, doesn't use the same means to liberate. Liberation really is emotional. And when we get deep into this work, we'll realize what that means is that much of our behavior is robotic and moved. We're like moved around like sheep. And what it actually is actually an emotional manipulation. So for example, a political strategist, the person, for example, if someone is on a political campaign and they want to get into the White House, what they do is they have somebody to advise them of how to approach this, and that's called a political strategist, right? And what a political strategist does, whether they realize they're doing it or not, what they do is they identify the trigger points in society at that moment. And they say, what we're going to do is we're going to press this button, then that button, then that button, then that button. And if I can press the right buttons in the right order, you're going to be in the White House, right? And so the way it really is you will notice that someone who's running for office, if you ask them a question about, say, immigration at one point, they will speak about something else. They'll just push it aside, right? They'll end up talking. But then 2 months later, they get asked the exact same question, and then now they want to talk about immigration, because that's the right time to push that button, right? And what it is what are the buttons, the emotional things that you push in someone? So it's either buttons of fear, anger, and grief, right? And so certain politicians will pull the fear, anger, and grief buttons, and because that gets a reaction, it gets attention and it gets support. Other politicians will also use those, but will attempt to press the feel good and feel better buttons, right? If I can make you feel better, right? And I can let you think that I can do something about your discomfort to make you feel better, that's also going to push the emotional buttons. The same thing is with movies. What is a blockbuster movie? A blockbuster movie is the one that gives the best release here. That's why we've had so much movies about anger and rage and violence, all these violence. They say that, the backwards behavior of the media says that the movies cause the violence. No, actually, the movies cater to the violence. They cater to the aggression that's already there. If I'm not already angry, you can't get me interested in anger. If I'm not already angry, you can't make me angry. It's impossible. It's not there, right? And so it's the same with that. It's the same with advertising. All advertising is, we look at advertising and we actually, because we're physically transfixed, we see a physical container, and I say to you, Keeper Springs. Delicious water, right? And so I show you the physical thing, and then I tell you the story. When you drink this water, you will feel like a new person. You know I did. After 3 days of drinking this water, well, I didn't have to get up at night and pee all night. I actually could sleep because this water, my bladder can contain, because it's real water. Okay? What I've really done is I've used the physical and the mental to trigger something there. What I'm really selling you is a feeling. And if you believe the feeling, if I say, you drink Keepers, you will feel more sexy. If you believe that, you'll go out and buy a bottle right away. In fact, you'll order a box, right? And so it's all about the emotional realm. If I do not take charge of my emotional realm, someone else will take charge of it for me. That's the way it works, right? That's the way it works. So as I liberate myself from the emotional into these emotions, a good test, a good barometer of this work is this. Once you've done alchemy work for a while and you're channel hopping on the TV, and you'll come across a channel, you'll be laughing because you'll think you're watching Saturday Night Live, and you suddenly, oh no, this is CNN, right? Right? Look at CNN, it's what it says, see the end, see an end. We are going to show you the end of the world on TV, right? Right? You can CNN anytime you like, right? So all of that is funny when you actually, if you can resolve your fear, anger, and grief, you'll see how funny it is. It's funny. Right? It doesn't mean that there isn't suffering going on. It just means it's not causing you. Here's a poor child from Africa for $30 a week. Just $30 a week, you could save the whole family. Of course, I'm taking $29 of that for my salary, but... Right? So that's the way it works, and that's the point of liberation, because the perceptual prison is the emotional prison. And that's what we free ourselves of. And really the prison is the boredom, living in the boredom. Because whenever I get the feelings that I require from outside of me, I can get a feeling from this. It can generate a feeling in me. I feel good about having this bottle, right? But because it's generated from outside of me, I can't get to keep it. It's just leased to me. It will fade. I can get that new car. Man, I'm going to feel sexy for a while. But actually, if I want to get my sexy back, then I need to actually develop this so that I can feel that from within, because that I can keep. That I can keep, right? And that no one can take from me, and I can have it any time I require. As long as I want, it's mine. And because I have it, I'm not going to run around doing things and thinking things in order to accomplish it. And that becomes a point of liberation. It leads us into a very different type of life experience. That's the evolutionary shift. Now, humanity is moving along that, not everybody. For those of you who want to save everybody, good luck with that. Right? Yeah, good luck. So the humanity moves like a garden, right? And we'll see that in our own microcosm experience and in the macrocosm experience, we really are, when you come to this work, it'll be from the physical through the mental into the emotional to approach the vibrational. In my own journey, a lot of physical pain, immense amount of pain, and I spent a long time in that pain. And then I spent lesser time in the mental, like what's going on here? Can I understand this metaphysics in the kitchen? You know, like is my macabre broken on the right-hand side? I mean, what's going, all of that stuff, right? Where are my chakras? What do they mean? All that. I stayed there, and then entering the emotional, it's much, the journey speeds up. Once I really enter there, I've got to enter there. I can't hold on to there and just put my foot in there just in case, I just stay here just in case. I really got to dive in there, right? And humanity works on the same. The pathway of evolution moves along the pathway of awareness. We can call this living in the cave, right? The physical world. Where we went, we lived, we had to have fire, we had to have some food, we had to have a woman to breed, or a man to breed, we had to have shelter. That was it. Safety, tribe, stay together, right? And really what a tribe is trying to be, that's why it's called tribe. If you look at tribe, okay? We're coming here to learn about the resonance of being. First got to get into the physical vehicle. It took us a long time to get this physical vehicle together. And it's groovy and it's finished. There's nothing else to add to it. It has everything it requires. It works. It can contain us, right? Then the next part of the journey is the mental part of the journey. Tools, right? Cutting things, right? Spears and all these tools, making things, needles, threads, right? Eventually, iPod, right? Apple Mac, right? Or we've now got all our tools. It's done. The mental part of the development is over. And this may have taken us, say on this timeline, millions of years. This takes thousands of years. This part of the journey is very quick. Some say it takes 13. So you can see the point of acceleration from millions to thousands to 13, right? It's a very accelerated part of the journey. And that's the part of the journey we're in at the planet at the moment. And when the planet, when a species enters this journey, it is most likely that they're going to enter it unconsciously. We don't even know what's going on. Just like we didn't know we were moving along this pathway of awareness as we entered the world from childhood to teenage to adult. You don't know that until it's pointed out to you. It doesn't exist until you see it. You go, of course, right? It's the same as this journey. We don't realize it. And until we enter this, when we're here, the world looks very different. We're looking at the world physically. When we look at the world mentally, it looks very different. When we look at the world emotionally, it again looks very different. Until we can be in the world, but not of it. In other words, we're anchoring our awareness here. So right now on the planet, there are 3 species. There are actually 4, but there's a very few of the 4th, right? There's 3 species on the planet. And we think of, because we're physically transfixed, we judge species by physical. We go, no, we're all the same species. You've got 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, a nose, so you're the same species as me. Actually, that's not how it works. The species is determined by where I anchor my awareness. What do I embrace as the causal point of my experience? Right? If I embrace the causal point of my experience and I'm physical, I behave very differently to if I embrace the causal point of my experience there. If I embrace the causal point of my experience as the physical world, I accumulate all my wealth there. Everything is about getting as much money as possible and finding a way to keep it and pass it on to my children, because that's all we have, right? And I've got to really, I worship my body, absolutely worship. My body is the prime thing in my life, right? Here, then it's my mind, my understanding. That's where everything is about my understanding. If I don't understand it, it's not real. It's not valid unless I understand it. Here it's very different. Now I'm starting to go into the feeling place. A person whose causal point is feeling is going to behave very differently to a person whose causal point is physical. This is a revolutionary. This too is a revolutionary. This is an evolutionary, right? This is the one that breaks out the loop. And the thing about it is, the way I see it is this, and I may be wrong. If you're already not on this boat, you're not on the boat. If you're really not on the emotional boat, you're not on the boat. And we can't tell who's on the boat. But the thing is, if we're not developing our feeling capacity yet, it's going to get very difficult to do so. It's going to get, because what we're doing is we're moving towards an awareness of this. And the thing about the awareness of the vibrational is that when that awareness is growing and growing, it's exaggerating the blockages. And as it exaggerates the blockages, because that's what it's going to do as it picks up, either we're going to run from it into the physical, or I'm going to turn and respond and clear the blockages. If I'm already not clearing the blockages, I'm having quite a tough time. I'm really having a tough time. And I'm probably sedating and controlling the hell out of my experience. And so many may still turn around in that, but we're already in the emotional, right? According to the indigenous people that have spoken to me about it, we entered the emotional realm in 1999. And you can see that because when a species enters the emotional realm, they punctuate the fear, anger, and the grief. In other words, there will be a planetary event to trigger, to set up the collective awareness of fear, anger, and grief. So as a planet, we can emerge and see. Emerge and see. And they will come as emergencies, right? And so, remember, we go from the fear to the anger to the grief. The war on terror, the war in Iraq, the massive tsunami that happened. They came one after each other. Boom, boom, boom. Fear, anger, and grief. They were collective experiences that happened to everyone on the planet. And in that experience, we either began to emerge and see, or we actually ran further into the physical world. We either started to transform, or we started to dig our bunkers, right? We either started to get the vibrational nutrition, or we started to stockpile food. So that is the deciding that's happening at the moment, right? All over the planet. And there are many people doing emotional work that we are not even aware of. There are all sorts of emotional practitioners all over the planet at the moment. So there are many people doing the emotional work. And the emotional work is the place to go. And the thing about this work is, it's already been shown to us. It's just that we can't see it. So what I'm going to do, as we just this last few moments before lunch, how many of you are born Christian? Right? In a Christian family, in a Christian, right? Right. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the teachings of Jesus, not the teachings about Jesus. All right? There's a very big difference. When we're in the physical world, we learn the teachings about Jesus. The teachings about Jesus people have killed just about all the teachings of Jesus people. All right? They've done their best to wipe them off the face of the earth. Right? But actually, those teachings are still here. The thing is, the teachings of Jesus cannot be seen unless one's attention is here. It's impossible to see them. Because otherwise, we go and say, what was he doing? And we analyze it. And actually, it's got nothing to do with the doing or analyzing. It's got to do with a state of being. It's about transmission of a state of being. So let's look at that, because this is not about Christian, because Jesus wasn't a Christian, just to break it to some of you, right? Jesus was a really groovy dude, right? If anything, he was a time traveler, because he knew what we were going to go through now. He knew about this approach to the vibrational. And he came with his posse 2,000 years before it happened, right? And laid in a pathway to show us the pathway through the emotional body, knowing full well we were going to go through it, which means he must have come from ahead of us to behind us to lay for what we need now. And the only way I can figure that out is this guy knows how to hop around time, right? Whoever it is, all right? And it wasn't just him, it was him and his posse. And it was an entire group thing that was going on, right? And so let's look at some of those teachings, because those teachings we see physically and mentally. For example, the virgin birth, right? That's a hell of a story. Right? That's a hell of a story. But it's believable from the physical if I'm physically transfixed, right? Until I realize what imprinting is. When I realize imprinting through my own experience, I can see that what a virgin birth is when the mother and father do not imprint the child in the first 7 years. Right? That's what a virgin birth is. It doesn't mean there's no sex going on. Right? God is not adverse to sex. The entire life is God having sex. Right? So God's not averse to sex. It's not about that at all. It's about bringing in someone in which the emotional body is not imprinted. Now that doesn't say less about who Jesus was, but it says more about who his parents were. And the work that they had to do to get to a point of cleaning their own emotional bodies, so when they brought him through consciously, that there was no imprinting. That's why he was born in a stable, not because there was no room in the inn. It's a bullshit, right? He was born in the stable because when you don't want someone to be imprinted, you don't have them in an inn where people are drunk. You keep that child away from other people who are imprinted, and you keep that child around animals, because you know what? A donkey has got less of an imprint than we have. A donkey is more present than we are. And you want presence around that being, and that's why I kept him around the animals, because the animals are present. So you will start to see, as you get into this work yourself, how it's going to transform your entire perception of what was going on there. So let's just take the last day or two of this mission, right, that they were on, right? Let's go from the moment of the kiss on the cheek, because this is such a profound teaching, right? Whenever we get upset, whenever we are triggered, take a look at the feeling. The resonance of that feeling is that you have been betrayed. Right? You have been betrayed. Like, I walk into the office and he looks at me and I get upset and I go, I don't deserve this. I've been betrayed. All my work in the office, everything, who I think I am, I've been betrayed. Right? The person that I've been pretending to be has been betrayed. Right? And in the betrayal, so the kiss on the cheek is the moment of upset. You're the one kissing me on the cheek. Right? And when we get kissed on the cheek, the very first thing that happens is we get taken before Pontius Pilate. And Pontius Pilate gets to ask us a really important question. Right? Are you who they say you are? Are you who they say you are? Are you really the person that you have made out of your emotional signature, so you get the appreciation that you're looking for and that you get to stay safe in this world? Are you really that person? Because if you're not, you have to die. If you're not, that person has to die. It's not real. And the moment you realize that person has to die, the very first step is the fear. Oh my God, I'm going to die to this, right? So the moment, that's what Jesus asked, are you the king of the Jews? No, he's not. Whose story is that? Right? He's this. Right? And so by not admitting to it, he has to die. And you can be sure that in the moment, because he was having a very human experience, in the moment he said, okay, now you've got to die, you're going to be crucified, that being went into fear. It's a natural human resonance. There was fear all around him. All the people that loved him, all around him, all went into fear. All that came up was fear. Did he show any fear? Did he say, actually, I could be the king of the Jews, and in fact, Judas is the one you should really be after, right? It's his fault, right, that I'm having this experience. No, he didn't do anything, because he required the nutrition of the fear. He had to contain it. Right? And then the walk up to the crucifixion, right? That's the walk of shame. Right? This person that I've been, that's not real, that I've used to get what I need and want, to manipulate others so that I feel safe. Right? And what happens is, on the walk to the crucifixion, what happens? People spit on him, urinate on him, beat him, all sorts of things. Does he go, hey man, cut it out, dude, I'm king of the Jews, leave me alone, right? Doesn't do that. There is no outward projection of the anger, and you can be sure he felt the anger. There was a massive amount of anger going on, right? Not only from the crowd, but from those who loved him and who watched the abuse. They got really angry. If anyone did that to any of you, I'm sure you'd get really angry, right? But was there any showing of anger? No anger. Why? Because it's nutrition. It's required, right? And then arriving at the point of crucifixion, who's there? His mother, his companion, Mary Magdalene, the people that love him, weeping. What's going to happen, right? The immense grief, you can be sure, because his felt perception is open, that he can feel that grief. Does he show it? No. Enters the point of crucifixion. What is the crucifixion? When we look at the crucifixion from the physical world, we can't see it. The crucifixion is when I realize that everything I've done with my hands to try and feel better has never worked. Everything I've done with these hands to try and make myself feel better has never worked. So I might as well nail them down. They are of no use to me in this next part of the journey. And when I realize that everywhere that I've walked to try and get away from my stuff, I'll go over here, boom. I'll go over here, boom, right? Every sacred site, every temple, every therapist's office I've walked into, it just follows me in and follows me out, because wherever I go, there I am. So my feet are no good to me either. We might as well nail those down. Here we are. And if I try and suffer, it's going to be, if I try and struggle from that point of realization, I am going to suffer. The only thing is I can be with it, right? I can't even think about it. Crown of thorns. There's no ways you can even think a conscious thought or a real thought when you have that much pain around your head. Like, stop it. No thinking of any use now, right? And in that place, being with it, that resonance, right, is when we start to die to the person that I manufactured. That's the death. And you know that he went through a death because we go through a death experience there. And we know he went through a death because he said, Father, why have you forsaken me? In other words, this doesn't work. This is useless. This is not. He went through a death experience. The problem is, it stops there for most of the religions. That's why they keep hanging the cross up. They're only interested in the gory, they don't get what that's about, right, at all. Actually, it's about, wow, I'm back in this moment, in the real world, and I see you. I've raised myself from the dead, right? And every day we are being offered a chance to raise ourselves from the dead. Every day we are being offered a crucifixion experience, and that's what it's about. In fact, the whole of humanity is now facing a crucifixion. And the crucifixion is this. Every day we wake up and we can see more and more things we can do nothing about. Every day they get added to the list. Boom, boom, gas prices, boom, boom. More and more we can do nothing about. That's the crucifixion. The whole planet is moving through the crucifixion. That's the journey of our evolution. That's our invitation into being, right? Because the only thing you can do once you've been nailed down is be there. Not going anywhere now. Right. And that pathway was laid up. That's the pathway through the emotional realm. It has been shown to us. It's not about someone saving us from anything. It's about someone having the courage to show us how to save ourselves, how to awaken ourselves from the hypnosis, from the state of hypnosis, right? And as we start to enter this level of the work, it impacts everyone around us. In fact, it's very important that we now start paying attention to those around us, which we will do after lunch.